following is a presentation of the Treasure Island Baseball Network.
The calendar may say it's winter, but it's always a good time to be focusing on the boys of summer. From the stars who make the plays on the diamond to the ones who make the decisions in the front office, let's bring you inside your hometown nine with Inside Twins. Inside Twins is sponsored by Killebrew Root Beer, locally owned and operated. It's how memories are created and legends are made.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Twins. Mark Janowski in our network studios here at Target Field. We're just 1 week away from pitchers and catchers getting going at Fort Myers and the start of spring training 2025. We're going to chat with Twins catcher Ryan Jeffers here in a moment on the show. First, there's some notes to cover first. Reports of an additional pitcher perhaps joining the Twins come spring training, a lefty reliever. He would be rejoining the Twins as there's reports that Danny Coulombe could be back. The lefty reliever spent the last 2 seasons with Baltimore. Before that, he was with the Twins from 2020 through 2022. He did have some surgery on his left elbow to clean up some bone spurs this last June, but did return to pitch in September for the Orioles. Also, the Twins released their 2025 promotion schedule. Just a couple things to highlight: a Royce Lewis City Connect bobblehead, a bobblehead of Byron Buxton that's going to include the Buck Truck horn, and plus a statue of Joe Mauer to be unveiled this summer out on the plaza. I encourage you to go to twins.com to check out the full schedule of the promotions for 2025. So that's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to. What we really want to look forward to right now is in a week, the players getting going at spring training. And with that, we welcome in Ryan Jeffers, who's still at his home in North Carolina, getting ready. He'll head to Fort Myers this weekend. Is that correct, Ryan?
We'll start the drive Saturday, so we're super excited. It's only like 10 and a half hours, so we'll get down there in a couple days.
And the fam's going with you, so plenty of interesting things to discuss and keep you on your toes as you're driving, right?
Yeah, making a 10-hour drive with a 2.5-year-old, we'll have plenty of stops mixed in there for sure.
Well, Ryan, there always is a serious excitement this time of the year as we're building towards spring training. My first question for you, is it even more so for you guys? Because the way I look at it, the best chance for you guys to erase or move on from the disappointing finish in 24 is to get back out there and get playing. And now you're finally just almost there to getting on the diamond.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we kind of get up to Twins Fest, and that kind of kicks off the feeling and the vibes for us in the excitement of just getting going. This time of year, there's only so much we kind of max out doing what we can do at our own houses. So it's time to get down there and get with the team, get in some really good live ABs, start challenging yourself differently, and really get the blood going ready for spring training or for the season.
You may have had this question a little bit during Twins Fest. How bad is the taste in your mouth still for how 24 ended, or have you stewed on that long enough? It's still going to motivate you, but now you're full steam ahead.
Yeah, I think you can use it as motivation. The crappy thing about baseball is the roller coaster of emotions is always going to be part of the game. And sitting here and dwelling and dreading on what happened last year, it isn't going to help us at all moving forward. So, yeah, we can learn from some of it, but at the same time, I can't sit here and put a finger on things that we blatantly did wrong that led to the collapse. I think there was a multitude in a bunch of different things that kind of were all going on at the same time that led to us playing bad baseball. So I think overall you get back to work, you get back to the fundamentals in spring and kind of build up from there.
Yeah, and I think a key is, like as you mentioned, motivation's good, dwelling not so good, and it's finding that balance and that fine line. What does your off season look like? Has any of your routine this year changed from past years as you're getting ready for 25?
Yeah, I think every off season you start to figure out every off season you have in the big leagues, you kind of start to figure out what works for you, and you kind of get to fine tune it a little bit every year. So for me, it's now going in. I think this is probably my fourth or fifth off season now as a big leaguer. So I've really started to lock down what I like to do, what I like, the different kind of milestones I like throughout the off seasons of when I want to start picking up a baseball throw and when I want to start flipping into to hitting more off the machine, when I want to start catching a little bit. So every year you kind of tinker with those a little bit here and there, but overall I found a really good routine that makes me feel good and ready to go for spring training.
Now you talk about like some milestones or some benchmarks you want during the off season. Are those things that you have set by yourself over the years, or do you ever get some suggestions or input, whether it be from a teammate or a staff member?
Yeah, I think that's part of the fact that routine probably is forever changing slightly. For me, I've kind of found it's more about the time of year and the amount of time I like to take off from hitting or from throwing or from the weight room, or when I like to start doing my running work a little bit more. Like it's more of the calendar dates of figuring out what my body likes and what's going to get me ready for spring training, but not overdo it, knowing that I still have a month and a half or a little over a month and a half once I get to Fort Myers to really get the body peaked.
When you look back at your 24 season, you had career highs in doubles, homers, RBIs. What parts of your game, at least hitting at the plate, were you encouraged by and ready to take to the next level?
Yeah, I think honestly, 24 was for me. I felt like I was better in 23 than I was in 24. Um, but there was a lot of things that I did really good last year that I'm going to be able to learn from and kind of continue to grow and grow from those things. Me and our new hitting coach Matt, we sat down and really went through a lot of different things that went well in 23, what went well in 24, and kind of tried to put our thumb and how can we blend it all together. If I can blend it all together and put the things and figure out how to do everything well. I know baseball is really hard, but I've kind of shown over the last 2 years that I can hit every pitch. I've just done them at different times. So putting that all together, that's the key, I think, to having the success that I know I can have.
Yeah, you mentioned Matt Borgschulte, the new Twins hitting coach. We'll get to him in a second. First of all, so you come out and you say you think you were better in 23 than 24, even though you did post some career highs last year. When you make that assessment, is that based off of just how you felt and you could see and feel just something wasn't right, regardless of what numbers told you?
No, it's fun. It's funny because I think in 24 in last year, I felt like I was a better hitter. But if you sit down and look at the black and white stats, 23 was a better year for me. Yeah, I set some career highs in homers and doubles, but overall 23 was a better year at some of the more in-depth stats, not so much surface level stats. But there was things that I did in 24 that I did way better than I did in 23. So there's a lot of really good positive things that I can grow from and things that I can take and learn. And I think that's kind of how you stay elite and how you stay on your top game in the MLB is you got to every year, every month, every week, you got to kind of figure out how you're getting attacked, figure out what adjustments you need to make and try and be reactive and not get caught in the back foot.
You mentioned already talking with Matt Borgschulte, the Twins' new hitting coach. So you took that question out of my rotation in terms of if you've been in contact with him. Clearly you have been. How characterize those conversations though? What has he tried to point out? And did he give you some stuff to start working on already?
Yeah, it's really cool to have a guy that you've worked with. I mean, I spent a good part of most of a full season with him in 2019 in high A. He's a very level-headed, very calm, a very approachable demeanor, which is a great personality trait to have. I'm excited to really dig into the weeds with him once we get to spring training. These new hires, like there's only so much that they can do over the phone. It's exciting to get in the cage with them for the first time once we get down to spring training and really get to know them. But it's cool kind of already having a leg up and knowing Matt.
Yeah. He spent the last couple of years with Baltimore. Prior to that, 4 years in the Twins organization. Like you mentioned, you worked with him. Trevor Larnach did. Other guys. He was on the show last week. He's very excited about being reintroduced to you guys and having a chance to work with you. The show is Inside Twins. It's brought to you by Killebrew Root Beer, locally owned and operated. It's how memories are created and legends are made. Ryan Jeffers is our guest. You can submit questions for the catcher via the Twins social media platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and X. Ryan, let's switch gears, talk about some of the guys you have had the opportunity to catch and you're going to again this year. Let's start with the guy that Rocco's already come out and said, yep, he's getting the ball on opening day. Pablo Lopez. Now, this is going to be your third year working with Pablo. Is there anything that continues to amaze you by the righty?
No, at this point, he's pretty much shown me everything he needs to show me to tell me that he's an ace. He's a clear-cut ace. He's one of the top pitchers in the game. I don't know if there's anybody better than him when he's on. When he's throwing like he did in Houston during the playoffs. There's just these games where he locks it in, and the work ethic and everything he does is just such an amazing thing that everyone can learn from, not just pitchers, but especially for pitchers to be able to look at a guy like that and say, hey, that's how he works. That's how he's got where he's gotten to. Is a really good guy to have in your clubhouse and be one of your leaders.
Yeah, he's going to get the ball on opening day. It's going to be his third straight opening day start. Oddly enough, all three of them coming in the state of Missouri. The last two have been in Kansas City this year, zipping across I-70, the other side of the state, when you guys open against St. Louis, and possibly Sonny Gray getting the ball for the Cardinals. You had mentioned it's too difficult to maybe zone in on one thing that happened and went wrong last year down the stretch for you guys. And it would be too simplistic to say, well, when Joe Ryan got hurt, some things started to tailspin. But there is a correlation to when Joe left the mound that day and was not able to come back and your guys' record. I don't want to fixate on that. I want to just say about what that shows you and tells you about Joe with the type of season he's having, that bulldog mentality, and the growth you've been able to see in him each and every year.
Yeah, it's really hard to lose one of your top-end pitchers. You can't – Pablo, Bailey, and Joe, were the backbone of what we were trying to do last year from a starting rotation standpoint. And when he went down, it's a hard pill to swallow. We have to turn to some rookies that have really good stuff and have really bright futures, but it's hard to have these high, lofty expectations for these kids that have never seen a taste of the big leagues. There's a big learning curve when you get up here. So when we lost him, it was a tough thing for all of us. I'm not going to say, like you said, I'm not going to point a finger at, hey, when he got hurt, that's the reason we started losing. And I'm not going to point a finger at the pitching staff for that being the reason we lost either. I think it was, we didn't hit, we didn't pitch, we didn't play defense. We just kind of played bad baseball all around.
Some silver linings out of the moment is that Joe's healthy and ready to go here next week when you guys hit the field in Fort Myers. And also, you mentioned the younger guys like a David Festa and a Zebby Matthews. Simeon Woods Richardson has a really good campaign. So there's some depth into that starting pitching that you're able to work with. So that always has to have a catcher excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great when you can have a top three like Pablo, Joe, and Bailey, some guys that at this point are pretty established in the career and know what they need to do, know how to handle themselves, and then to have some young exciting rookies that I can help guide down the path of their early big league years. It's something I really enjoy, and I really try and make a big impact on what they can do. My job, I've always said as a catcher, is to bring the best out of my pitcher that day. So going out there with rookies and trying to help them through some of the struggles of early big league career is hopefully I can be pretty impactful in that.
Yeah, and you're starting to migrate towards that veteran status now, just with how many years you have under your belt at the big league and having that wisdom to be able to pass on to the younger guys. One last arm to talk to you about, a guy who there was some speculation, would he be a starter coming into this year? Griffin Jacks, the Twins and Griffin talked, and he decided to keep him in the bullpen. And I get that decision because he is one of the most dynamic arms, not just on the staff, but in baseball. Again, here's a guy you've seen for the last couple of years. He can flat out be a difference maker when he takes the mound in the 8th or 9th inning or whenever the high leverage situation is.
Yeah, I have no doubt that Griffin would be an extremely successful starter. I also don't think that was an easy decision for them to keep him in the bullpen. You look at not only what you can see on the mound, but what he does off the field from how he takes care of his body. I don't think there's a question, because I think a lot of that transition boils down to whether you think they can stay healthy if they start again. And with Griffin, I don't think there's ever a question of that. I don't think it's completely off the table of him becoming a starter one day. But to have a guy like that in your bullpen, like you said, one of the top relievers in the game, to have him and Duran anchoring the back end of that, gives you a lot of confidence when you're getting it, when you go into the later innings of a game with a lead.
Yeah, and if you throw in hopefully a healthy Brock Stewart, Justin Topa rebounding, all of a sudden that bullpen becomes a strength, and your whole rotation and staff looks like a serious, good side of the ledger for the Twins coming up in 2025. The guest is Ryan Jeffers here on Inside Twins. We're going to take one quick break. When we come back, Ryan puts on the Swami gear. We're going to play Knack right here on your home for Twins baseball. All right, welcome back to Inside Twins, brought to you by Killebrew Root Beer, locally owned and operated. It's how legends are created and memories are made. Ryan Jeffers is our guest, segment 2 of the program here. We play Knack. And again, Ryan, we're going to ask you to tap into the lifelong baseball fan that you are and teammate that you are, and try to divine some of these players that we're going to be talking about. What we're going to do is we show the back of a baseball card. We'll show, and I will also read some clues, and you take a stab at guessing who we're talking about. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. Our first card, where we're going to dive right in and look at some stats and see how well you know some of the guys on the pitching staff from their numbers. The guy had a 2.9 WAR this last season as he went 12-9 on the campaign. Let's give you another clue. You have been behind the dish for more than half the innings this guy has already thrown in his career. Clue number 3, look at that. 11 quality starts last season, the most by a Twin since Johan Santana in 2004. And finally, the big righty, born in North Carolina. Ryan, who's on this card?
That's Big Bailey Ober.
It is indeed Big Bailey Ober, one of the guys we did not talk about in the first segment because I was holding that back here in the tank for this segment. Another guy, though, that you guys can count on, and I'm just so impressed how much he keeps looking like a bulldog. Last year, I put him officially into that bulldog category, and he earned it.
Yeah, that's a great word to describe him. He's one of the best competitors you can be around. He's going to grit his teeth and get some big time outs for us. He's going to go out there and give you a quality start almost every time he's out there. Me and him have developed a really good friendship just from the fact of I've caught him pretty much since I've been in the Twins organization. So we've rode together for a long time. And it's really cool to see him having the success that he's having.
And it's great when you have a battery mate like that. I mean, it just makes your job more fun, right? When all of a sudden you can get to a point you're like, I've been up and down the road with this guy.
Absolutely. And you start to develop these relationships. And as the relationship gets better with the pitcher, the more trust you guys have in each other, the more you can really talk about the in-depths of scouting reports and stuff. Just the more you get to know each other and the more you get to respect each other's opinions.
All right, let's move on to card number 2. Our first clue. This guy was born on March 27th of 1987. Of course, the year the Twins won their first World Series championship. Not too much that you can really divine off of that. So let's go to clue number 2. 21 years later, he was selected 5th overall pick in the MLB draft. Let's look at some stats and see that he had career highs with 24 homers, 103 RBI, a league-leading 336 average as he captured the 2012 National League MVP award. Any guesses yet, Ryan?
Is that going to be Buster?
It is indeed Buster Posey. The last clues that we had is that he had won 3 World Series titles with the Giants, and he's now San Francisco's president of baseball operations, and he nabbed over 30% of would-be base stealers during his incredible 12-year career. I know this was a guy you enjoyed watching when you were growing up. Was there any part of your game in the past or even right now that you still try to pattern after Buster Posey?
Yeah, I think it was growing up that he was the guy for me that I would watch. I would go on YouTube and see what he was doing and watch his highlight tapes and watch how he was handling himself behind the plate. I haven't had the pleasure to meet him yet. I hopefully maybe one day when we get out to San Francisco or they come to us, I can say hey to him and have a little chat. But he's always been someone I've looked up to. There's not a one thing I can and put a finger on of hey, I took this from his game or that. But everyone always says he carries himself, and he could really command a room, and knew how to talk to pitchers, and knew how to handle the mental side of being a catcher really well. So it's something that I've always tried to model after him.
Yeah, with how you revered him when you were growing up, would there still be a little awe if you win and if you finally get to meet him, or would you be more, no, I got to play it cool?
No, I think yeah, I'm sure there would be a little bit of both. I think it's when you get to meet one of your idols and someone you watch so much of growing up. There's no way getting around the cool factor of that for sure.
Well, he's going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time in 2027. I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to be elected to Cooperstown on the first try. All right, third and final card here on Card Knack. And we're going to see that this guy, a big righty, 6'4", picked in the 23rd round of the 1983 draft. Moving on, we're going to show some stats. His best seasons of his career came with the Twins, including 91 through 93. Overall, for his career, he appeared in 276 games. He went 22-16 with 13 saves. Next clue. Around here, folks called him Big Train. That nickname stuck. You're smiling. Are you zoned in on him?
Not at all.
Oh, okay. Last clue, then. Last clue, a UNC Wilmington product, spent 14 years, Cleveland's pitching coach, including the last 7.
Mr. Carl Willis.
It is Mr. Carl Willis. I'm always
Never
curious
heard
to
of
hear.
Big Train. That was the first one for me.
Oh, you never heard about Big. Okay, so that was I believe the story, and I don't want to be misquoted. The story is around 91 or so. He would talk about maybe some of the success that he was having. And I can't remember if Gladden's involved in this or not, but I think Jack Morris, someone said, oh, that's Carl tooting his own horn, and they started calling him Big Train, and it kind of stuck. But it was easy to do with him because he was a very affable, fun-loving teammate that fit in well with those guys and still does now whenever they see him at the ballpark. I'm always curious when you have an alumni network like that, even though you guys are separated by quite a distance in your time, just when you see him, do you ever talk about Wilmington and the days of the college and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Every time we see him or play Cleveland, it's always good to go ahead, say hey, shake his hand. He's always busy. I'm always busy, so we don't get a ton of time to sit down and talk. But it's always good to kind of have another Seahawk around and see them often. But I work out with one of our longtime head coach down here, Mark Scalf. He comes and throws BP to us, and he's got stories for days about Big Train.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, Ryan, you just went 3 for 3 in Card Knack, so nice job there. And 3 for 3, that'd be a great day at the plate, right?
That would be great.
All right. Ryan Jeffers is our guest. One more quick break. When we come back, questions from the fans for the Twins catcher right here in your home for Twins baseball. All right, welcome back. Final segment of Inside Twins brought to you by Killebrew Root Beer, locally owned and operated. It's how memories are created and legends are made. Twins catcher Ryan Jeffers is our guest. This is a segment where we turn it over to the fans, but first I get the first crack, the first question here. And Ryan, what I want to talk about is among some of the changes this year off the field, or with the staff, I should say, we already talked about Matt Borgschulte being the new hitting coach. Hank Conger, no longer the first base coach. He's going to be assistant bench coach and still working with the catchers, but that keeps him in the dugout now in those half innings when you guys are actually at the plate rather than in the first base batters in the first base coach's box. So the advantage is he's there to talk to you or whoever the pitcher may be. Is this something that you guys noticed in the season last year that you would be like, boy, maybe we could take more advantage of Hank if he were here right now instead of at the first base coach box?
Yeah, I think he's very engaged he is very engaged in the scouting report and the game planning side of things. So having him in the dugout when we're talking about those mid-game adjustments and when we're sitting down talking with Pete and the pitcher and going through things, it's always good to have another set of ears and another set of eyes and looking at how it's been going. It's going to be really exciting to have him in there, and I think it's going to be really exciting to not have to watch him limp over to first base all year.
He had a serious battle with gout last year. I know he was not happy about that. I've actually tried to tell him and steer him towards some medication that I've heard other people have had success with in terms of battling that. When you heard it on paper, you look and you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to bring him into the dugout when you guys are going to the bat rack, because that's an opportunity for him to engage with you guys that he was missing out on. So I'm encouraged by that, as you are. I don't see how that plays out this year. All right, let's hear from some fans, some questions. Our first one, this is from Mike. Is there an opposing hitter who makes some good conversation or is funny to greet when they step to the plate and you're at the back there behind the dish?
That's a common question. I usually get it the other way, like, hey, do you talk smack to anybody? Um, it's the more you know a guy, or guys that you've played with in the past. I think those are the guys that stand out the most. Um, for guys that you have good conversations with, it's not one guy that jumps off the plate for me that is a guy that's like, yeah, I just always love seeing this guy. But it's always the guy that have history with, that you can kind of ask how their family's doing and get a little bit more personal up there. They're up there to do a job. You can't distract them too much. But it's always good to see people that you've played with before.
Yeah, I can understand why people like to ask you that question. I think movies like Bull Durham or the Major League movies really make people think that happens all the time with folks. There's some witty banter and they want to know what's going on between the hitter and the catcher. All right, next question. All right, do you work with or pick the brains of any of the amazing former Twins players that we can find in and around the ballpark, whether that be here at Target Field or down at spring training?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those guys. It's one of the things that us as the Twins kind of. It's a really special thing that we have the ability to do is have so many Hall of Famers and really good baseball players that have played their game and done a lot for this game and for the organization, and have those guys around. I think we'd be naive and kind of dumb to not pick their brains. So having those guys around is definitely an invaluable thing for a lot of us young players.
Yeah, how much time do you think you get to spend during spring training when some of them show up as the special advisors and are there for a couple of days to just shoot the breeze and, like that question said, pick their brains?
Yeah, it's spring training. You kind of on the run a lot during the day, but you always kind of, if you see one of those guys, you kind of try and find to set aside 5 minutes or whatever it might be, whatever time you can find to just chat them up. And if you have any questions, or if they're watching you hit in the cage, or a lot of them aren't, in a good way. A lot of them aren't shy to kind of step in and say, hey, this is what are you thinking here, or kind of start those conversations. I'm excited to. I heard Joe Mauer will be down there this year. That'll be the first time I've seen him. Um, I see him around the locker room once in a while, but I haven't had the conversations baseball wise with him. So hopefully I'll have a chance to sit down with him, or whether I'm doing catching work or hitting, and have some conversations there.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about excited to get Joe back down to spring training. All right, what else is on the minds of our fans? Christy would like to know any suggestions for a 2025 home run celebration. All right, I guess maybe that's going back to the sausage from last year.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're talking the sausage, we're talking the home run vest. I think those things have to kind of happen organically. Anytime someone like, we're going to do this year, it becomes really forced and just kind of awkward, and no one really wants to buy into it. So I don't think you'll see one for the first little while, and then all of a sudden maybe we'll have one, and there'll be a good story behind it, like there was with the sausage last year. I don't think there's any way to plan what it's going to be, but hopefully we land on something.
Yeah, I think you're right. Those things, when they spurn up organically, they carry a little bit more. And when it comes from maybe the guys in the clubhouse too, you guys can truly rally around something. All right, time for one more question. Greta, which of the crayon bats are your favorite, and why did you choose those colors for the custom bats?
Yeah, we had Victus sent us a couple options this year, when for the players weekend, and I chose the pencil, I chose the crayon. The pencil is actually just right up there above me. There's a couple other ones. So the pencil was the coolest one for me. So I grabbed that one first. I told myself during the players weekend, like, hey, if I get out with the bat, I'll switch bats and use the other one. My first AB was a homer, so I kept swinging it for a little while, and 2 homers later, we finally got out, and I had to switch up to the crayon for an AB, and so it's cool. Victus did a good job, and hopefully they'll do another good job during this year's Players Weekend of giving us some cool options.
For the fans listening on radio and didn't see it, they are displayed on the wall behind Ryan Jeffers at his home. How many do you have up there? It looked like about 7, 8.
Probably 6, 7. These are just 7. Just some more of the fancier, the painted bats that I've gotten over the years. There's one up there that's from my wedding. I got one and gave to my groomsmen. There's a couple different specials. A signed Nelson Cruz one up there. There's just some more special bats that deserve to be on display.
Yeah, well, they look good there on that wall behind you. Last thing before I let you go, I rattled off a couple of the promotions this year. I'm curious, when are we going to get the Ryan Jeffers bobblehead, City Connect, and sporting one of the nice helmets? That was one of the better stories I had last year. Chatting with you was the buildup with how those were being produced and then displaying them and how excited you were to finally get a chance to wear them. We got to get that on the docket.
Yeah, I think maybe for 2026 we're gonna have to get some maybe a replica helmet giveaway or something. That'd be pretty sweet. I'll figure out in spring training who I gotta put some knuckles on to get that worked out. All right.
I like it. Put some knuckles on. All right. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today. Safe travels coming up on Saturday as you're going to make your way down to Fort Myers. And then next week at this time, boy, mitts are going to be popping. The ball's going to be zipping around. Are you ready?
I'm excited. I can't wait to get down that Florida sunshine.
All right. That is Ryan Jeffers. This has been Inside Twins. Thank you for joining us. This is Mark Janowski again saying we'll talk to you next week here on your home for Twins baseball.